A judge in Michigan has sentenced the parents of a teenage gunman who shot and killed 4 classmates to at least 10 years. James and Jennifer Crumbly were found guilty of involuntary manslaughter earlier this year for their roles in the November 2021 mass shooting. Today, court heard emotional impact statements from the families of those 4 teenage victims. Journalist Sally Patterson joins us now from New York with more on this story. So, Sally, these are the first parents to ever be charged and then convicted in their child's mass shooting. So take us through the sentence and what happened in court today.
That's right. This is really an unprecedented case because what it really does is starts to look at who is responsible for a mass shooting, for any shooting really. Now, what we're talking about here is a school shooting that took place in 2021. The 15-year-old boy at the time, Ethan Crumbly, went into his school and shot 4 fellow students aged between 14 and 17. Now, since then, his parents have been held in jail. They've been through 2 different trials. They were tried separately, but today they were sentenced in one hearing. What we heard from the judge when she was giving that sentence was that she accused these parents of still not really taking responsibility for their actions to this very day. She said that Ethan, their son's actions, had not only killed 4 people and injured 7 others, but had also caused suffering to hundreds of others in what she called a ripple effect. And so what that meant was that each parent was in turn given up to 15 years in prison. Now, the time that they've already spent in jail over the past couple of years will count towards that. And both parents spoke to the judge and spoke to the court asking for a more lenient sentence before the sentence was given. They both addressed the parents of those who were killed in that school. Those parents gave very emotional testimony before the sentencing was delivered. Here's what they had to say during that court appearance.
Watching the video, hearing testimony on how your son executed my daughter, watching him put the gun to her head as she covered her head and pulled the trigger. Seeing pictures of her laying in her own pool of blood, knowing her body sat there for hours.
Instead of acknowledging any mistakes, they continue to show no remorse. They take no accountability. They and their lawyers continue to try to change the narrative and portray the defendants as victims of the prosecution team. They blame everyone but themselves and make threats of retribution.
Now, one of the things that parents continuously picked up in the court, both today and actually over the trials as well, was this idea that James and Jennifer Crumbly did not seem to be remorseful for what had happened. They didn't seem, according to these parents and indeed the judge, to really take responsibility for their role in their son killing 4 young people while just on a normal day at school. And that idea of not taking responsibility was something hammered home by those families who say that their lives were effectively destroyed by Ethan's shooting. We did hear from Jennifer Crumbly herself before the sentencing. She said that she had been misunderstood by the public during her trial. She said at that time that her actions wouldn't have been different, but she says what she meant is that she just had no idea that her son Ethan was going to go into the school with the gun that these parents bought him just before Christmas in 2021. And she said he had no idea that he was going to do what he did. Here's what she said to the court.
I've been criticized that I don't show emotion. I'm unsympathetic. I don't cry enough. Let alone I grieve. And if you were to look into me internally, you'd find I've died on the inside. I will be in my own internal prison for the rest of my life. Your Honor, I'm asking you to take consideration that I have been locked in a cell 23 hours a day, essentially in solitary confinement, for over 28 months, and that the court finds a fair and just sentence for me.
Now, something that was brought up again and again in this case as well was how many times Ethan, who was just 15 years old at the time, asked for help. He was writing notes at school saying, "Help me." He messaged his mother several times saying he was hearing voices and that his house was haunted, and yet some of those messages actually went unresponded to. And that's why the judge said that she was going to give this serious sentence to both parents. What this does mean is that parents of other minors, both in shootings and other offences as well, could in theory also be held accountable for the actions of their children. Back to you.
Okay, Sally, thank you for this. Journalist Sally Patterson speaking to us from New York.